even the mystery and delight of being in the now. So once again, let's go into what happens when you're in the now, because if you return to the now, right, and you're dealing with the same roller coaster of random thought, which is basically complaint, right, then the now has no merit whatsoever. It's same old, same old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, I mean, I don't know. We like that only helps us so far. I'm just thinking like, why would you want to return to the now? And so we've already prefaced that in like a ton of videos, and so I don't know if we need to really go back and explain all of that. But I think, yeah, so once you get to the now, I think there's a multitude of reasons why you want to do that, but what do you do from that is what you're asking right now, right? That's the
First,
question you're asking.
what I would say is, since you're referencing a multitude of reasons to do that, to be awake in the now, right? You know, what, just give me a couple of reasons. Never mind a multitude, just give me a couple of reasons to do that.
Why you'd want to do it, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. One is to be able to appreciate what you have, to actually, come back to a state of like, appreciation and just like maybe a little bit of awareness, like you're taking in your surrounding instead of just complaining all the time, It's to come back to a state of of I guess, you know, appreciation is the only word that's coming to my mind. Appreciation, uh,
Okay, but again, if you're in the now and you are still chewing on that roller coaster of complaint, right? All it is you're going to be more aware of being in a shitty mood.
yeah, and then so it's gonna be even harder to appreciate anything that is around you if
Hi.
you don't have the right tools to
Hi.
work with it.
Hi. So give me another. So let's
Yeah,
just say, come on, go ahead.
I'm
More.
trying. I'm thinking. I don't know. What's another? I'm drawing blanks, but let's think of another reason. I don't know. Just I feel like I can't. I'm not. Can't. I'm drawing blanks. What's another reason that you can
Okay,
think of?
another reason, right here, right now, without saying that this is going to be like this forever, because we
Yeah.
both know it isn't, but right here, right now, you are in a state of safety. You are not in a state of threat. Yes or no?
Yeah.
All right. So that would be a reason to return to a now, right? Um, for a benefit. Now, sometimes you're in a now where you better be awake and you better be scared, right? When you're
Hmm.
driving a car, you need to be in hypervigilance. You need to. You have to do that, or you might kill somebody or get killed.
Hmm.
Yes? But
But
now, you and I sitting in the comfort of our dwelling, we do not have to be, there's no threat.
mhm.
Is there any threat right now for
Yeah,
you,
no threat for me at all. I don't. I'm sure for you too. But
right?
so I have a question about the driving thing opposed to this. I feel like with driving, you can still be there in the now, right? Even
No,
with the
no,
threat.
you better
Yeah.
be now. That's
Right.
why there's so many car accidents, because everybody's driving around being there then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's important in all these situations, in all these different situations.
Well, the other thing, if I may, is anything else is ephemeral mind, is because the only possible state existentially that we can be in is in the here and now. There's no there then. It
Yeah.
isn't. The there then is all projections in our heads.
Yeah. And I think like with so many things, we get so narrow-minded in our day-to-day activities that we sometimes all we're doing is looking at the past and the future and not the now,
Hi.
or we're focusing so much on a negative or a complicated thing that's happening right now that we're not looking at the bigger picture of it. And so that's one thing that I guess I've been trying to do a lot right now is just, not get so narrow-minded. Like I think like in a day when I have free time in a day, I'll try not to do one thing for too long, because I could sit and I could write, or I could sit and I could watch TV, or I could sit and I could do all these different work. I clean my house. I could sit and I could do that all day, but then I get so caught up in that I'm like, I don't have an open view of what's going on around me. It's just this and this task. And I think that can be good for a lot of things, but I can't go overboard with it. I gotta, if I only have a day off or 2 days off, I gotta balance out what I do with that day, so that I'm not just getting, I don't know, just getting like obsessed on one thing and doing that the whole day. And I think it's just a narrow-minded thing that we can do that's similar to focusing on the past or just focusing on the future, but not on the present, you know? Because I'm here in the present, but I'm not focusing on it. I'm focusing on a task, but I'm getting kind of extreme with it. I'm going too, you know, I'm going overboard with it. Like I don't need to.
Right, but wait a second, we got to be careful because here the fog of Americana is coming in just a little bit.
Mhm.
Please understand that what we're talking about is not being happy all the time. We're not
Yeah.
talking about that. We're not talking about being high all the time, or you know. But what we are talking about is using this limited thing called life, right? With as much awakeness, the new woke thing that everybody's talking about. This is a much deeper woke. Yes,
Yeah.
we're woking to the fact that we are in eternity. That is our gift. Yeah.
So I don't know how to articulate it then, but like I'll use writing and TV as an example. You know, I could
Writing
spend
two very different
two
things.
very different things, you know, very different things, but I do the same thing with it where once I start, I don't want to stop really, and then I can go overboard with it. Both of them. Anything, even cleaning my house, you know.
As far as writing is you producing something. Watching television is you being inert. Yeah. Right.
But
Those are
very different things. Very
Yeah.
different things. But even with writing, I think that I can't spend 12 hours in a day doing that. I need to,
I would say if you're inspired, why wouldn't you?
because then I start to not do focus on the other things, you know, I neglect the other things around me.
Yeah, because again, what is happening in your ongoing here and now for those 12 hours is your investment in producing something, right? Something that you profess, as in profession. That is vastly different from hanging around watching TV, smoking dope, and picking your nose.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is just there's a balance. There needs to be a balance because even with something good that's productive, I become narrow-minded and neglect the other things around me, even, you know, to my own detriment. Like I won't eat or something, you know, I won't eat throughout the whole day, or I won't, you know, I have to clean and I won't clean, or you know, stuff like that. I, or I don't know if this is completely going off track now, but I just thought of it. Another thing that I tend to do is I'll have to get something done, like writing, and instead of writing, I'll end up procrastinating, and I'll clean my whole house. You know, I'll spend the next 10 hours cleaning my whole house. You know.
Well, the fact is, if you do that, then you're making good use of not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Right? If you sit around and watch TV all day long and then feel bad about yourself, right? That is an utter waste of life.
Yeah. I don't do any of that. I don't feel bad about the things that I do. I'm just trying to find a balance where it's even with the stuff that I know is good, I can't go overboard because then I start to neglect other things.
I'm sorry, I disagree with that fundamentally. Why would you limit good things? Right?
Just yeah. I mean, the only reason I'm thinking is just because you don't want to get too narrow-minded, narrow view, because then other things get neglected.
If you're focused on something, you have to be focused on it. If you were trying to build that dwelling for your mom, and you're thinking about an article that you read in the New York Times, right? That would be called a distraction, dude. No,
definitely.
No, I'm sorry, but no. Some of these ideas, if you'll excuse me, you're kind of tying yourself up with an idealized expectation where it's not appropriate for this reference. Like when you are driving, you need to be driving, right? And you know from a bunch of your friends that when they're driving, they're not driving.
Yeah. I've definitely seen people do that.
Right, and you know, I saw that happen, and the outcome of this woman in her Range Rover, right, not paying attention, she killed a kid in a Mustang. You know, right. So I don't agree with this. When you are focused in on something, right, to the exclusion of all other things, if that thing that you're focused on is quality, that's what you're supposed to do. That's the only way to accomplish anything.
That makes sense.
Right now, if you are spending that time focused in on, the range of trivia that we all do, endless trivia, that would not be a good use of that here and now. Yeah. But to be focused on a project is the balance then of open mind. But it's a balance. right? When you
Yeah.
walk, walk. When you run, run. Above all, don't wobble. When you are, or the other one is when you sit, sit. When you walk, walk. Above all, don't wobble. So
Yeah.
when you are sitting, that is when you open up to totality, which is available to us at least as an idea. And
Yeah.
in that we gain nourishment and ease. And again, right here, right now, is there anything that you and I need to be afraid of?
No, definitely not.
If you're walking even downtown Santa Fe at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're walking down an alley and there's some sketchy people behind you, should you be in a state of oobla-dee, oobla-da? Everything's groovy.
Yeah, no, definitely not. You should probably be a little so aware of your surroundings.
Indeed, you need to get the fuck out of there,
Yeah.
right? Yes, right? So once
So
again,
I don't want to take this off of the topic of what your point is, because I think as I'm articulating my point, it is doing that. But I just want to close this end off before we get back to it. So in terms of a noble endeavor, opposed to an endeavor that's not noble, like watching TV or like freaking eating food all day or whatever, a noble endeavor where you're creating something, you're doing something good. Do you think there's a limit in a day to how much you should do that if you're neglecting other things, or do you think you
you
just
mean you mean attempting noble acts?
yeah,
No, there's no limit to that. Why
yeah.
would there be a limit to that?
Just
Dude,
because my only reason was just because the concept of balance and not neglecting the other things that are important
well, you see,
in the day.
we don't want to be trapped by balance. I would say, at a certain point, we get to gorge. You understand me?
Yeah,
You do good because it feels good. Now, if that's
yeah.
your reference for noble action, which I think it is, right? How can there be a limit to that? Why
Yeah.
would there be a limit
Well,
to that?
so I
Now,
think that we made a good distinction though in all of this is that the distinction between something that's not necessarily noble or productive or beneficial, but opposed to something that is productive, creative, noble, beneficial to anything. Those are two separate things, and maybe one
now,
we
now, the
approach so
place of
much differently.
balance in this, the place of balance in this, right, is it is okay to watch TV.
Hi.
Right? It
Yeah.
is okay to pick your nose, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. The fact is, if it's out of balance, where then acts of, let's call them nobility, I just love that. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's the same with the sacred. When you ask me, all right, Chris, what's the sacred? I would say the sacred is attempting acts of nobility, which means you are at your best, which means that you are available to be of service to others. Yes or no?
You were trying to make something better, whatever it is.
Right.
Trying to create a better situation,
Right.
whatever in any situation.
Indeed, indeed, in any here and now, in any here and now. Yeah.
So then I kind of have a way to get it back on topic now. Is the narrow-mindedness of being here in the now, but only focusing on the past and the present, and that can take us away from the
Right,
here and the now.
right.
And
See, that's a whole other thing
yeah,
because that, in fact, is the way we've been trained, right? And that has absolutely nothing to actually do with the here and now because we're doing there and then.
yeah. I watched what was it, After Earth? I just put it on because it was on one of the streaming services, and
Terrible movie, but it
yeah,
still has profundity in it.
yeah,
Does.
yeah.
Go
Great,
ahead.
great,
What's you?
great writing. The little tips of writing nuggets in it, and one of them was he says basically that thing. Is you're worrying. Fear is a worry about the future, but the future hasn't happened yet. So that fear is not a real thing. It is I don't remember his exact quote. It was really he said it very eloquently, but it
What he
was
said
something
was that
along that.
you were in fear of an idea. When you're actually dealing with the thing of fear, you're in the midst of dealing with it.
Yeah.
Right? Then you're not afraid, you're dealing with it. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's astonishingly profound. The other profundity was where he says, take a knee, cadet, take a knee, cadet, take a knee, cadet. That is profound. And
Just
that
taking
is us
a
throughout
moment.
the day, taking a knee, right? When we're out of sorts. That's what that was for, is for recollecting, right? It was from stopping this foray, this endless foray into fear-based excursions into the past and the future.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. No, I mean, and that's all. I'm like
That
pretty
was the
sure.
only two things that were good about that whole
Yeah,
damn.
yeah, it was a silly sci-fi, but at least there was those pieces of nugget, I guess you could say. They were very, very valuable, and I think that's what I'm trying to articulate. Just that, you know, it's this irrational thing that we do to take ourselves out of this here and now, you know? And
again, if we are consciously going out of the here and now, right? As in, you and I've been telling you every week now for 2.5 months that there's yard work to be done. But of course, with this glorious rain happening every day, it's so cool. It's so cool.
It's been incredible, yeah.
Right? It's just been the best summer here. God, when the world is in flood and fire, we have this beautiful summer. Yes or no, man?
Yep. The sunset last night was incredible.
Wasn't that amazing last night? With that weird, those droplets in the clouds. What was that? Yes?
Yeah, right. I mean, you said a word to me the other day. You said like globulous clouds or something like that, and that was all I could think of was like they look like globulous, like like bubbles.
Have you ever seen bubbles in the clouds?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah,
not like that. Close, but not like that. It was, and again, tell me that you were not in a state of awe, in open mind, looking at this with what Krishnamurti calls a silent mind. You weren't going, this sucks, the past sucks, the future sucks, it all sucks. You didn't do any of that, man. What you did was you took in the miracle of the here and the now. Yes or no?
Yeah. Hi.
And was it not nourishing?
Hi.
Okay, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's what it's like a buffet all the time. Every day we got this buffet in front of us, and what we do is go, I'm not going to do it. I'm starving, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. What we're talking about is pulling the peels off of the eyeballs and seeing what's the banquet in front of us.
Right, because it is a banquet. It is a banquet.
Even the most mundane things are also a banquet. We just think they're mundane because we have these filters over our eyes where we get so used to them.
But the filters are the fact that we are habituated to seeing these things, and therefore we feel that we have exhausted their mystery. Yes? And this is that beautiful vignette in the Castaneda books where Castaneda says to Don Juan, are there really new worlds to discover, Don Juan? And Don Juan says, you fool, we have exhausted nothing. Nothing. We have not exhausted the mystery of a lima bean. As you know, that's one of my latest reminders. Yeah. Talk about mundane, right? A lima bean. Well, have you ever actually looked at a lima bean?
Yeah, I'm probably not, honestly.
Well, the fact is they kind of look like an embryo for one thing, and they have all these little veins, and I mean, they're astonishingly beautiful in its specificity. You understand?
Yeah.
And more and more, I begin to understand what beauty is about. Beauty is about a thing being so specifically articulated, right? That it is complete. That it is complete. And in that is automatic beauty, which is astonishing to me, right? More astonishment. For God's sake, Chris, you're just talking about a bean. Yeah.
So what do you mean by complete?
Well, that lima bean in its specificity is not a black bean. It's not a pinto bean. It sure to hell is not you or me. It's not a cat, right? It's not the Himalaya, right? It is the specificity of a lima bean, right? Well, that lima bean in its absolute specific articulation of being, right, along with everything else, took 13.5 billion years to articulate. I mean, isn't there a little bit of mystery in that? Just a little.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. And then so would you say that, like, opposed to something that's not fully developed, or an art piece that it hasn't been finished yet, like not complete, is there something that isn't complete? Is there anything that isn't complete?
Oh yeah, lots of them. Well, in nature, not so much.
Yeah, in nature,
about a leaf unfurling in the springtime, right?
Yeah.
But that unfurling is also absolutely specific.
Yeah.
The unfurling is not unfurling to become a calf or a cow or a shoe or me, right?
Yeah.
Right? It is unfurling to become this astonishingly specific expression that we call leaf. Yeah. Which, by the way, if you actually look at a leaf, is like exquisitely articulated. Yes?
Hi. And
right, and in that specific articulation, it's beautiful.
hi.
It's
What
beautiful.
I'm thinking about is also the mirror, or the circular nature of things, how kind of like we mirror things on like the cosmos almost mirrors, or like the planet mirrors our body, with like how much water and how much, uh it's like 70% water on the planet,
Well, I
70%
would say
water on the body.
around that our bodies mirror the earth, but not
Hi.
the earth
Yeah,
mirroring
yeah, yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. No, but just the mirror, the mirroring nature of the cosmos, how, like the sky, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good explanation, but it's not saying that we are the mirror, but the earth is the mirror, just like how our skin looks like a tree branch, like a tree trunk, like it has the same like
Yours
textures.
doesn't, but mine does
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Mine is
right.
withered. No, your skin looks like a nice flower at this point, dude.
Or like tree branches look like rivers kind of, flowing out, or like how they mirror each other on the most cosmic scale to the most macro scale. Like atoms are like almost like like the universe, or all of it, how it seems to have this like mirroring effect. I don't know how to explain it, but throughout, from the smallest thing to the biggest thing, it all seems to be one. I don't know whether maybe it's another thing. There's like pictures of globulous nebulas in the sky,
Right,
and then
right.
there's pictures of like, I think it must be of genes or atoms or something on a really micro scale, and how they make the same patterns and they make the same images.
Well, didn't the sky last night look like nebula?
Yeah, yeah, seriously.
Right? Didn't it look like, and it looked like mysterious nebula because, oh shit, it was manifesting in ways that is not the norm, at least not in my experience
Yeah,
of 30 years, right?
and
Right?
different shapes too, all kinds of different shapes too.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Was it not thrilling?
yeah, very thrilling.
Right? It was like,
Yeah,
oh shit, look at that. My God. Right?
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I guess what I was saying just now kind of almost leans towards like an intelligent design thought process, but I'm not even saying anything about intelligent design. I'm just saying about the
Sorry,
mystery of it.
intelligent design is something that the atheists, right, use to diss the theists, and neither one of those references just has any merit whatsoever, right? Again, somebody asked me 25 years ago what my religion was, and I've told you this before. I said my religion is I am an ecstatic agnostic. Nosos is Latin for knowledge, okay, right? Or Greek. I don't know, it's one or the other. Anyway, so nosos means without knowledge. It is not pronounced agnostic. That is a
Yeah,
mispronunciation of nosos, being without knowledge. So I am an ecstatic agnostic.
don't know. You don't know. You admit that you don't know.
Unknowing is now so profound, it is so deep, right? That I do not know what my fingernail is. Yes?
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not about the knowing, it's about the question that makes it
It's
deeper and
about the
richer.
question deepening into wonder. Now, if the questioning does not take us into wonder, it's kind of pointless.
Hi.
Hi?
Just questioning everything.
Yeah, I mean, if we question with the idea of returning to again the mystery of a lima bean, the mystery of a fingernail, the mystery of Alex Palomito, the mystery of Chris Gray, right? Within the mystery of air, on the mystery of planet Earth, in the midst of the mystery, or at the outskirts of the mystery of the Milky Way galaxy, then we begin to use life correctly.
Hi.
Now, why do you say hi with that again, that impact of intonation? Why do you say it like that? Hi.
Just because life is very short. It's very limited. Well, I mean, it can also be long. It can be short. It's finite. It is finite.
Compared to the life of a tortoise who gets to live 400 years, our lives are short at best,
Hi.
even with Botox and all the rest of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Or in
Yeah.
terms of the cosmos, right? In terms of how
Oh,
long, yeah. Yeah. So we might as well want to utilize the time that we have. I think that's what everyone wants, is how do I make the best out of my life? How do I live the life to the best? You know, how do I, and then it becomes, what
So
is my
the
purpose? Or
outcome is a life filled with quality. That's the point. Yes?
yeah,
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I think if most people switched what is my purpose to how do I find a life filled with quality, people could be a lot happier, you know?
Indeed. Now,
'Cause
within that, purpose then, right, is not about you justifying yourself. Purpose, at a certain point, if you'll excuse me for sounding hippy dip, but then what you do becomes an expression of thank you, thank you, thank you.
yeah. And one thing, no, one thing that I got with writing is you know, a purpose, giving a character a purpose in whatever reason is like one of like the best ways to write a character, obviously. And then like an extreme example of this is in zombie movies, a character wants to live. So he feels like he has a purpose to live, you know? And it's just the fundamental thing of it's not necessarily that our fundamental purpose is not necessarily that we want to be somebody or to do something great or to accomplish anything, but it's really that we want to just be alive, you know. In the essence, it's just what we want to have a good life, you know. And most people are just wondering how do we have a good life?
Have a good hype. That is exactly right. And then we are told that, again, particularly in this culture, which is a puppy culture, it's one of the youngest, American culture is one of the youngest cultures on planet Earth,
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to East Indian culture, let's say, which again is, you know, probably 5,000 years old, as opposed to the American culture, which again does lift from Europe. That is true, right? But in the American idea about quality of life, what we are led to believe, what we are raised to believe, is that the ultimate express, the summation of life is acquisition, is gathering stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's what we're told. That is what
Yeah.
we're told.
Yeah.
So what we are talking about now is abandoning all of that and just taking in what is in front of us with a degree of fresh question. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to not deviate too much, but I've just been writing about the concept of purpose, and so I want to talk about that for a second. Like animals, you know, they all kind of like ants, for instance, you know, they work in their system, and they all kind of, you know, they provide for the natural, you know, habitat around them, and they work as like almost like a sustainable part of their system, you know, to keep it going.
No,
And
it's very efficient, and they work for the community.
and it seems like each animal on the planet, besides maybe dogs, because we we mess with them so much, but besides maybe like they all have their kind of purpose or place on the planet,
Right,
you know.
right.
Whereas as humans, we're looking for a purpose, like how to justify my existence. But when I'm re-understanding purpose is like how can we be part of a system, be, you know, like how come all the other creatures are here to be part of the sustainable system, but then we're just here destroying everything? Is that really our purpose, or can we
No,
do something
no,
greater, you know?
that's why we're all so crazy, because that is not our purpose. Our purpose is to create and uphold, and we're not doing that. So again, we are all in a state of misery and lunacy,
Yeah.
true craziness,
Yeah.
the real deal. Yeah. So, and it is, but again, the question needs to be asked that what lack are we imposing on ourselves, that we have to have purpose before life makes sense?
Yeah, it's like well, I think maybe, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I as I've been researching about a little bit about history and everything, there's the whole thing of manifest destiny, and
Which
like,
is
you know,
way
terrible, it's
really
disgusting, but
right.
that whole period of time where manifest destiny and we have to create our place in the we have to mark out our place in the world, and we kind of that, you know. And
That
Descartes,
it's
I think
God's will, for instance, that we should. This was coming out of the ass end of subjugating the indigenous people of the North American continent, and that was somehow okay to annihilate them because it's God's will.
God,
That's
yeah,
manifest destiny,
yeah,
right?
and I think that's kind of where it all comes from.
Hi,
Yeah.
hi. This is lunacy. You
Yeah.
understand?
And would you say like I mean, what were you thinking when you asked that question? Because that's what came to my mind. But what else do you
Yeah.
think?
The other thing that we have been told is that life gains its justification through what we do. Yes, right? I contest that foundationally. Yeah, I think that life has its justification in its being. Yes. And again, if we begin to gain nourishment from that, which is absolutely available to us, then our purpose becomes expressions of thank you, thank you, thank you. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And opposed.
those are beautiful, by the way. Those expressions. Huh?
Definitely. No, definitely. I'm
Open
just
up.
thinking,
Yeah.
yeah, opposed to like the other where society is saying it's all about more and more and more, and you should have better jobs and better careers, and then it's kind of like it becomes this like classist, like, oh, I look down upon you because you don't have as good of a job as me, you don't have 10 cars in your garage, or and
Hi. Hi. Which is lunacy in the face of death. You understand? That is lunacy in the face of
yeah.
death. It's
And
just,
then we're not me, but other people who could never accomplish those things are looking up at that and saying, "Oh, now I'm not worth anything. I have no purpose. I'm not worthy because don't have 10 Lambos in my garage."
indeed, indeed. See, all of this is based on a foundational premise that is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm
Crazy.
sure
All based on he who dies with the most toys wins. That's what it's based on.
where do you think that came from?
Further lunacy. That again, mostly this is about denying the fact that we are here for. If we are going to be in this place where you have to pay taxes and you have to suffer pain and all the rest of it, be surrounded by both incredible beauty and unbelievable suffering forever, then it would make sense to acquire stuff.
Right.
Then it would make sense. So we are all working under the denial of death. There was actually a guy back in the 70s, early 70s, Ernest Becker, who wrote an astonishing book called The Denial of Death. And it really is still a very, very potent book that everybody should read. And basically what he's talking about is that American culture denies death. Even in psychology and psychotherapy, if you think about death, a therapist will tell you that that is neurotic and you're being morbid.
Yeah, it's a little
That's
weird.
how
Yeah.
crazy we become.
It's still even like I still see it all the time where it was a comedian or just some guy somewhere, but he said along those lines, like he was just trying to say like he's a entrepreneur talker, and he was just talking on stage about how to get yourself going. But he was talking. He said this. He said every morning. This is extreme, and obviously don't need to go this extreme, but I understand the essence of what he's saying. He said every morning I imagine every one of my family members dying. And obviously like he said it really extremely, but the point of what he was saying is that he was using his death as his motivator, as his advisor to continue to pushing forward.
He's using other people's death as his motivator. What all he needs to say is every morning I need to acknowledge that I'm gonna die. You'll know. He didn't say that.
Yeah. But people took a big argument with
because
it.
he's also denying his own death. You see,
Yeah,
I'm going to miss my families as I live forever.
Yeah, it's close. He's close, but not quite there.
Well, again, the fact is that distance, right, is pivotal.
Yeah.
Because one, it keeps death as an idea. The other, it makes death a fucking reality, baby, right? And with that mirror, then you can say to yourself, am I using this gift, right, in a way that is intelligent? And what is the measure of intelligence? In that it brings me awe, wonder, and nourishment. You feel me?
Yeah.
I mean, without those things, life makes no sense. Yes?
Yeah. And well, I'm just thinking like, how do we get those things? And
the answer is by looking at what's in front of us.
Exactly. And how much is human, other human engagement a part of that whole equation? Because I feel like one of the fundamental things people are looking for is like human interaction.
Again, I would say the wonderful thing about being in this place is we get to interact with all different kinds of beings, all different kinds. I saved a wasp drowning in my shower this morning, right? and we had a nice little interaction as I saved it from drowning. Thank you very much. Right?
Yeah.
That was, that was a little aside as I'm taking my morning shower. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
if you think about it in terms of eternity, that's kind of remarkable, don't you think?
And
Don't you
yeah,
think?
a way to spend your life in eternity.
Hi, hi. Oh,
There, I was just heard something. It was a test where they were seeing what created long life, what created the longest life, and they did all these different tests, and then their conclusion was that it was people who had good, strong relationships is what lasted, which led to the longest living people out of these test groups.
that is so Americana. Now, well, I'm curious. Was this an Asian doing this study?
I can't remember. I could try to find it and send it to you.
Well, even if it was an Asian who did it, I'll bet you it's an Asian who went to a Western school, right? I mean,
Right.
that is so Western, I just can't even believe it. Yeah, I mean, what about your relationship with eternity? What about that relationship?
Maybe that one doesn't make people live as long because you don't need to be in this form to be, in relationship to eternity,
Well,
maybe.
I think that's kind of a clever answer to that. I would say that, if you're living this life inside eternity, you're already in eternity, and then living and dying become very superficial. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of maybe what the thing is that it's more of attachment, it's more of that attachment thing, that once you have more reason to be attached, it's harder for you to let go. Maybe that's what that maybe that's a conclusion that I can take away from it.
But what's causing the attachment? I don't understand.
These relationships that these people have, out of the test subjects that they did, the people who lived the longest and were these people who had good relationships and had strong, communities and support groups and stuff like that.
I'm sorry, but I mean, all you got to do is look at Zen masters, most of whom lived alone when they were in old age, and they lived to be very, very, very old. Same with the yogis. Very. I'm sorry. That rap has gap. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I would like to see the test done if it was like on, people who were just spent their time with animals, no people at all, and see what happened, see because
you see, I would say in the midst of, a tortoise living 400 years or the Milky Way galaxy being around for about 10 billion years, right? And the Big Bang being around for 13. I mean, our lifespan, if we can add another 10 years or so onto it, I mean, all of this is like, I'm sorry, but kind of a stupid reference for quality of life.
Right.
I mean, so you live to be 90 instead of 80.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I was thinking. I was saying it seems like it has to do with attachment and living longer, which is not the important thing, definitely.
Well, again, if you live for a long time and you're in misery, I mean, or if you live for a short amount of time but you were in joy and glee and high adventure, which one would you rather have?
Yeah, I would much rather be glee, high adventure with a short amount of time. Yeah,
So don't you see that we think that these are existentially foundational ideas, right? As in what is, how do we attain quality of life, right? As a goal instead of the fact that is unfolding already right in front of us. Yeah. That is the beginning of lunacy. That's already crazy. Because
going to search for it instead of,
Hi, that we are in a state of we will achieve that at some point.
Yeah. And I think that's what I see a lot of people doing is how do I find happiness? I'm searching for happiness. If I just do this, I'll be happy. If I just do this, I'll be happy. And people in my close sphere have said those things recently, so it's on my mind definitely. But I guess what I said in that situation was it's not happiness isn't a thing that you find, it's a thing that you create. It's a thing that you build it. And
if you'll excuse me, no. Happiness is an outcome. It is not something you produce. It's an outcome of you doing other things. We got to be real careful here because we don't want to get into dichotomy. Production is bad. being is good. No, it's a blending of those things, right? When you are in a process of creativity, right, you be in that process of creativity with the good, the bad, and the difficult that brings with it. You do it totally, right? When you are in a state of open being, you do that equally, totally. And then what you have ipso facto automatically is quality of life. And in that state of high quality of life, the damnedest thing happens. You are happy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm definitely not trying to argue, but just going back to what I was saying in the beginning is the balance thing. Is if I start to neglect all the other things, then I notice I get to the end of my day, I'm like, oh, I accomplished something great. But then I look around, I'm like, oh, my house is a mess. I didn't eat food. I feel like shit, and then, and
Okay,
so, yeah,
you see, I'm sorry. No, if you'll excuse me, you're mistaken in this. You
yeah,
are, right? For instance, now that I can work in a limited way on the swords, right? There's usually dishes in the sink, right? The fact is that in me giving myself totally to this production, which I do every summer for the past decade,
yeah,
right? I do acknowledge that other things are going to be outside of my field of attention. That's okay, because the outcome of this focused attention is these beautiful swords,
hi.
right? Now, when I'm
Luckily,
done with that, then I go do the dishes.
yeah, and luckily I don't have kids. I mean, I have animals, but I don't have to like take care of kids, or I don't have my responsibilities aren't too big yet.
Yet,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
All right. But
yeah,
even within those responsibilities, right? When you are being a responsible parent, you're being a responsible parent. When you go back to child mind, yes, right, then you are in a state of child mind. Now, if you are applying child mind to raising your kid, that is inappropriate. That would be called the wrong tool for the wrong job. Conversely, if you are using dualistic certainty, which you have to do to a degree to raise your kid, I know that it's not a good idea to let my kids stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning if they have to go to school the next day at 7:30.
yeah. I mean, that's
Right?
straightforward, right?
Right? That is dualistic thought. In that context, I need to use that. When I'm talking about my relationship with the Milky Way galaxy, right? Maybe not so much.
Yeah,
But the trouble is we get all this stuff all mixed up all the time. And then instead of clarity, what we have is mud.
yeah,
Yeah? Yeah. And then we sort of relax, right? And then we sort of invest in being productive. Huh?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
When you're watching TV and smoking a joint and picking
yeah,
your nose, do that totally. When you are in the process of writing with the attempt of doing a script, a screenplay, you
yeah,
do that totally. But what we do is we mix them all up.
yeah.
You
No,
know, while I'm writing, I'm going to smoke a joint. Well, I mean, that's a waste of your powers of creativity and the joint, right? Save that for watching TV or going out at night and taking in the Milky Way galaxy, right? Right? Right?
hi.
When you walk, walk. When you run, run. Above all, don't wobble.
Yeah.
Then everything has its place.
This is not. This is not as this is a little bit off topic, but it's kind of there. It's not as profound, but what it's been making me think is just so many stories and stuff I've heard throughout my life is the parent who works a lot. He works so much, and then he doesn't take care of his kids, but he's providing for his kids. And what is right? What's right? What's wrong?
Right.
And
The answer is against necessity, even the gods do not fight. That is the answer to that, dude.
what does
Right?
that mean? Yeah.
Well, think about it for a second. Against
God,
necessity, right? If the parent didn't spend the time not being with the child, making the money, didn't do that, what would happen to the child?
he would be even worse off.
Yeah, the child
Yeah.
might starve to
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, as an aside, this is the terrible evil of working with an economic system that is based on me in exclusivity instead of we as a norm. See, this is one of the terrible evils that comes out of that. Yeah. I had an anthropologist friend who told me that the hunter-gatherers,
Yeah.
about hunter-gatherers,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was pre-farming.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
three
Pre
people.
10,000 BC,
Right.
according to history, mainstream
How
history.
long ago it was,
Yeah.
what it was a different way of living, and it took them about 3 hours a day to take care of the essentials. 3 hours, not 9 hours, not 10 hours, not 8 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
Well, again, our culture is so crazy that in order for us to be sustained and our families to be sustained, right, we have to invest in this unbelievably crazy culture for at least 8 hours a day when we are working to get by. Yeah, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So,
it's absurd. It's absurd. And then just how in some places you have to work so hard, like in the East Coast or places in America where you have to work so hard for such a little amount. And then it's like really like how are you ever gonna get out from that under that weight? But one thing that not necessarily that statement, but the statement before made me think of was the koan. It was a koan where a a priest. I'm not going to say it right. It's been a long time since I have
that's
heard
okay.
it. But
That's okay. Go ahead. Tell me. Tell
so
me.
a priest comes to a man's house, and he tells him he wants to make him a monk, or he wants him to become a monk, and then so the guy leaves his family and walks away and becomes a monk. And when I was young and I read it, I was like, why is he leaving his family? What is this? What is this meaning? And and I think the whole thing
The
was.
Buddha did that. The Buddha did that. The Buddha had a wife and a son, and he walked away from them. Now he also made sure. I mean, they were royalty, so they were going to be taken care of just fine,
Yeah.
right? Later on, when Rahula became a man, he became one. He became a Buddhist monk.
This story is in Zen Flesh, Zen Bone, so maybe I can find it and
No, I
bring
know,
it
I know
up.
the story. I know
Yeah,
the
okay.
story. The guy
Okay.
said, "One more mile, one more mile, one more mile," and he walked away from his family.
I
Yeah,
think so. Yeah, yeah.
again, the answer to that it would depend on how he left his family in terms of their well-being.
Hi.
The sixth then patriarch, Huineng, before he went to northern China to talk to his Zen master and study, he made sure that his mom, who he was taking care of, was set up before he allowed himself. He saved and got enough silver, and a patron gave him some silver so that his mom was squared away. Then he went and did that, right? So
So that makes all the sense to me. And maybe I'm just going more off topic now, but what was the point of that koan, the one that I read, the one about
well, that's
him
not
saying
first off, that's just a Zen story.
it was just a Zen story?
And
Okay.
the point of that story was again the the man leaving everything to set out to find the foundation of life in eternity is a noble endeavor. It is more noble than anything else. Now, this is what all the religious and the monastics say. I personally don't agree with that. Yeah, I don't. You know,
Like you were just saying, take care of your loved ones and then go do that.
right,
Those
right.
are two,
By the way, this was a beef with the Confucians in China, with the you know the translation from India of monasticism, where in India, being a monk or a nun was considered the highest expression of being after all these incarnations. And again, if they were the real deal, then they deserved to be cared for by the laity so that then they could complete their rounds of incarnation and then merge with God. And that is the noblest expression of being separate from God to begin with, right? Is to gain reunion with God. That's the religio, to bind back. Yeah. So again, when Buddhism came to China, the Confucians said, what about taking care of your family? What about taking care of society?
yeah.
Right? Which I'm sort of down with that. I mean, for instance, when I was practicing as a novice monk in India, right, I saved enough money to live off my own money. I was not living off East Indian people
Mhm.
who have very little to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, when I left India, I was able to give my sponsor a couple of thousand US, which in India then was like a lot of money.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome. And it's awesome that you were able to provide for yourself, and because you understood that, you can't be one of those people who are going to be mooching and be, that especially
Indeed.
in a different country, that would be,
Right.
it'd be
Right.
kind of antithetical to your training almost,
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the downside, again, of organized Orthodox monasticism, is that, the laity, then, the regular folk have got to take care of those people.
And
Yeah?
it kind of goes back to what I was thinking with the Native Americans and the native cultures around the world, the indigenous cultures around the world, wherever, even in Japan, the Shinto cultures, but where there's a thing about, not necessarily what is your purpose, but being part of the system, taking care of the system, and not just being there to use and to,
Well, but even with indigenous cultures, this does come out of this peculiar division between the laity, normal people with families and stuff, and the monastics or the priest class being separate. This has its foundation in shamanism, which goes way, 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 way back to the dawn of our species gaining a degree of what we call intelligence, yeah, where the shaman was separate from everybody else.
Yeah, he had the knowledge or the
Right.
powers or whatever. And
Went to the shaman to be healed both physically and spiritually and all that
and,
stuff.
and from what I understand through my history, through my learning of history, it seems like the earliest form of shamans kind of became the kings almost, in like Egypt and stuff. Like there were shaman kings, and like
No,
they were.
no, you're mistaken about that. I'm sorry. No, no. Just like, no, there was the priest class in Egypt, and then there was the royalty. And it was the same in India with the Brahmins, right, which was the priest class, and then the Ksatras. I'm not saying it right, but the warrior caste. And that is where the kings and royalty came out of,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
It is, even in Egypt, it began with, again, the shamans being separate from, and this goes all the way through Judaism and all the rest of it, with like John the Baptist living out in the wilderness, living on locusts and honey. That's what he ate. I mean,
And,
damn. Yeah.
but so the thing is that he was separate. He was not part of the group.
In that separateness, he was vaulted. You understand? He was a cut above the rest. You see? Well, again, that then evolved into priest classes in all different cultures around the world, right?
Well, I mean, and with Native American cultures, the headbands, you get a feather for learning a skill or accomplishing something. You get a different feather. And most of them are down here, but they make the double headbands for people who have accomplished a lot of things, and they have feathers going. But so it's all based upon individualism, or separation based upon
I would
difference.
say I think that's true of the Western indigenous populations. With the Iroquois on the East Coast, not so much.
What do you mean?
It was different. Well, they didn't have the same symbols for power.
Yeah.
They didn't have symbols,
Yeah. This you're just talking about more the Western Native cultures. Is that what you said?
Right.
Yeah.
And then all that.
Yeah, definitely.
And part of that's because they had eagle feathers at their disposal.
Yeah. But so my thought process was that is a similar thing that you're talking about, where we are trying to separate ourselves based upon this hierarchy of accomplishments or worth or anything like that.
Yeah,
and you can even trace it back to Native American cultures. So it's not like they were any more, maybe to a degree, but they're, not like they weren't perfect. They might have been better than us as modern people in terms of.
It's like any culture. Like the Hawaiian culture to me is it's the same as Amazonian culture, right? Even though they had hierarchies and they had lunacy there too, right? Yeah. The one thing that they had, which is what most indigenous tribes have, is a sense of collectivity, which we have lost fundamentally in dealing with our economic system, right? Even though we claim to be a democracy, which is about we. We live with an economic system that is about me. It is not about us. It's about me. And in that distinction, right, we end up going into a deeper lunacy because we feel like we're all alone in the reality of eternity and living and dying. Yeah. It makes us crazy. It makes terrible. It makes us so despairing, right, that we actually are in a state of lunacy. Yeah.
Korea has this word. It's like one word, but it's like the meaning is like a paragraph long, and it's like basically, a person who knows that they're at odds with the world or knows something's wrong with the world, but they can't necessarily articulate what it is, and so they have this like anger. I think we're at time. We're probably at time.
We are, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, finish your thought.
Just it was this long thing for the concept of there are so many people who kind of understand that something's wrong, that we're not doing it right, and it's very prevalent in the Korean culture, so they have a whole word for it. But just for us, my way of describing it, just that we know something's wrong. We're not doing things right, and that's why everyone's so fucked up and crazy. But so maybe we should try to figure out the right way to do things.
Right. Well, again, the fact, yes, that is true. And so then what we have to look at is what works in terms of deepening quality of life, not just for you and I, but for the collective we, whichever numbers we get to touch of that reference. You understand? Right? And just that shift makes for much more of a sense of being protected, because it's not just me, it is about we.
And that is sacred or noble.
Well, at the least, it's safer.
Yeah.
It's safer if I can rely on you to have my back, right? And you can rely on me to have your back. At least when we are in each other's company, we are not as threatened. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Never mind nobility and all that stuff. Just for saying we're just safer. Yeah. Let's just start. We're just safer.
And I think everyone's looking for safety, to some degree.
Yes, because it's a jungle out there, Jane. Yes. Yes. All right, dude.
All right, cool.
I'll see you tomorrow. And at some point, we're going to get to do our work, right? Because it won't rain every day. But in the meantime, it is gorgeous, isn't it, man? Right?
Yeah, it's been amazing. It has been amazing, honestly.
Beautiful, just beautiful. All right, dude. Love to you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Love to you.
Hi.
All right, bye.